Well, somebody in the chat room wanted the checklist, so I'm going to put that up there so people can screenshot that while I dig up some hockey stuff.
Sounds good. Yeah, James had asked. I think that was in I think that was in response to Wesley's other question, which we'll get to. Yeah, if you we will have time for one or two more questions after this. So if anyone has any other questions for Dan, now's the time to drop them into the chat, please. Don't be shy. Dan, one day I'm going to come up with some obscure sport that I'm going to hedge my bets that you don't have a video just sitting on your computer. I haven't found it yet, but
I got 5 1 TB hard drive, so it's in there somewhere.
yeah.
Okay, I gotta stop sharing. Got a glitch on my Zoom. I don't know what's going on. Not letting me share, Andres.
That's weird. Hold on, let me see here. There we
There you
go.
go. All right. So it's the same idea whether you're in football gear or ice hockey gear. You can still identify these key moments. So this comes from one of our colleagues, Vicky Bendis. She's with the Canadian women's national team and the Pro League now. And so through her data and research, she found moments where things separate really good movers or skaters from average or poor. And so our key moments were a touchdown of the front skate, weight acceptance onto the front skates, full support, late propulsion, and toe off. And so you can draw these lines in these kinograms of these key body parts, the torso, the thigh, and the shank, and do pretty good analysis on what good movers are doing versus poor movers. So touchdown, how far is the initial touchdown of the blade in front of the center of mass? At weight acceptance, where is the back leg and what is the knee angle, the max knee angle of amortization on acceptance? And then at full support, what is the leg scissoring angle, so the distance between the knees, and how has that shank angle changed and what's going on with the torso? And then late propulsion, where we're getting into more extensive phases, what are these segments doing? And then again, what's happening at toe off? So it really doesn't matter if you have gear on or not. You can still trace and measure these key body segments or joint angles to some degree.
Yeah. Second question from Wes in regard to your checklist that you just put up, so everyone had a chance to view that, screenshot it, or review it. Um, are there any items in that checklist or flow chart that you find coaches tend to over prioritize and lose the big picture and the details?
Yeah, that's a good question. I'd say some of it depends on what your bias is. So people might have a joint angle bias, so they're busy measuring all these joint angles and they're not looking at posture at all. Or they might have a landmark bias, so they want to know where the arms are and they're ignoring what the legs are doing. Or they may not have an axial awareness, so maybe they're looking at these planar positions, but they're not looking at the rotational dynamics of these segments or what these axes are doing. So I think it's human nature to have bias or confidence in what we're experienced and seeing or what we've utilized in the past. So that's why I kind of put that checklist up is it's kind of a safeguard. Like when you're looking at video, make sure you're ticking all those boxes rather than spending a lot of time on one of those boxes.
Yeah, no, good question, Wesley. Yeah, any last questions for Dan? Now, if yes, oh, we just got one. Perfect. Thank you, Alexander. Um, in cases of extreme pelvic tilt for track athletes, i.e. the gentleman from the posterior angle, what cues do you use to fix the issue? Or is
Some
that
of
even a cueing? Is that even a cueing? Is that even something you can cue your way out of, Dan?
the, well, I would try to cue, and if the person's bought in and they're motivated to change and it's not changing, then you know you got a hardware problem. So a lot of athletes train themselves into a movement bias. So if you've done a million starts and excels, you're going to be biased to anterior tilt and neutral. You know, that's the zone you're going to be working in, where when you get upright, pelvis has to go under retroversion. And if we've done 10 million starts and a lot of upright running with no feedback or awareness, then we're going to have forward tilt when we're upright. And you do that over and over and over. Now you got a muscle system bias that's keeping us trapped in this pelvic tilt. So a lot of these aberrations and movements, unfortunately, are created by training biases. And in certain sports where they don't have to run upright a lot, maybe that's not such a big deal. But if you're in a sport where you do have steps when you're upright, then it behooves us figure out why they have excessive pelvic tilt and go to work on those things. Some of it's hardware, but a lot of it's training bias that we've got to undo over time.
Yeah, so circling back, as you said, you would try to cue them out of that. What would be some practical cues that you might try with that athlete to see if they can respond and
I do a lot of
fix the
compare
issue?
and contrast, so I might have them do marching skip drills, and if their pelvis is neutral during the skip, I'd say, okay, I need you to feel your pelvis like that when you're upright sprinting. So, you know, you give them a reference point or a point of context, you know, for awareness. A lot of them aren't even aware that they're like that. So I do a lot of video comparison where I'll put a real good mover up and then them up, and I'll show them like your pelvis is really excessively tilted anteriorly compared to this person. And a lot of times just seeing it, they'll make the correction unless they're really embedded in training bias or there's a real severe hardware problem. So awareness is always my first stop in the education process. Do you know what good is? Do you know how the pelvis should move in various phases of the gait? And here's what really good movers do with their pelvis, and here's what you're doing with your pelvis. Do you think you can make this change?
Yeah. Dan, so what we'll do three more questions here. So I've got one from James, one from Simon, and one from uh, John. So let's go through those three. We'll take these three questions. So thanks for throwing those out there. Let's go, John, first. When addressing hardware issues in an athlete, do you primarily rely on on-track technical cueing constraints, or do you find gym-based interventions more effective?
I'd say if it's a really embedded hardware issue, it's a medical intervention rather than on track or weight room. If a joint is really malpositioned, I haven't found a weight room exercise that'll reorient that joint. So mobilization and manipulation of the joint to reestablish range of movement and joint gliding and fluid dynamics in the joint can only, in my opinion, come from a medical intervention. So I guess it would probably be a question of how severe is the hardware dysfunction. You know, you may be able to cue muscle, tendon, ligament systems to operate a little bit different, and that offloads the joint and it returns to normal. You may be able to find some weight room exercises that actually mobilizes the joint in a correct way. But in my experience, if it's a really severe hardware problem, it's a medical puzzle rather than performance puzzle.
Yeah. All right. Two more questions to go, Dan. We'll skip to James's question next. Is there a technical model that has been developed that you advocate? And I'm James, if you want to put in chat, or I'm assuming you're talking about accelerating or sprinting in this case.
Yeah.
Yes.
So like I said, I don't emulate any one athlete. So I look at, like I said earlier in the talk, the 10 best middle school movers, high school movers, university Olympians, and I look for the common denominators in segmental positions, landmark positions, joint angles, and it's not an endless loop there. I mean, you don't see anybody running 100 meters with their arms straight the entire time. You don't see anybody running 100 meters with their hands up by their chest the entire time. There's certain movements that elite people do that non-elite or novice people don't do. So that's my starting spot in developing a technical model. What are the common denominators in these landmark positions, these joint angles, these postures, these movement expressions? What are the common denominators that we're seeing at no matter gender, age, stage of development that we're seeing in good movers versus poor movers or ineffective movers?
And we're going to conclude with a question from Simon on one of the athletics or track and field's youngest bright stars. And he's just asking for what are your thoughts on, to use a current example, gout sprinting technique? Do you think he is fast because or despite his technique? Do you think fixing his technique, fixing in quotation marks, fixing his technique would make him faster?
Well, he's obviously effective. So we started to talk out about effective versus efficient. Now, some of his segmental positions at various phases of the gait are a bit alarming to me because I've been down this road before. And if those are left unaddressed, then the injury risk or potential goes up. So there's some key segmental movements that make me nervous when I watch him run, but he's very effective right now. And, we would bucket him as a very elastic mover. So he's using a lot of elastic energy to propel himself down the track. My concern is that people don't go overboard in weight room and whatnot because this guy is a gazelle. And I've seen this mistake made where they get these gazelles stronger, but they restrict range of movement or they dampen the elastic input into their gait and they end up injured or running slower. So, long story short, he's very effective right now. There are some inefficiencies that worry me from the injury standpoint long term.
Yeah, he's got a long way to go. I mean, he's so young too, right? So
Yeah.
he's still really just kind of growing into his body, and potentially the scary thing is growing into his technique and coordination at this point.
Yeah.
So yeah, no, well, good questions. Thank you everyone for dropping some questions in the chat. Hopefully others enjoyed the answers to those as well. With that, I really want to thank all of you for tuning in today. Hopefully you found this interesting and valuable. If you feel like something like this in a more structured and extensive format would be valuable to you as a coach, we would encourage you to check out our Coaching Eye program, which starts September 20th. We've had coaches from a variety of different sports take this program, not just sport coaches, but also therapists as well as fitness or strength and conditioning coaches. Again, we've had coaches from all realms. It's a guided 4-month long program, which includes master classes, live sessions that are usually 2 hours, like you kind of saw right here, We have structured parts to it. And then Dan, myself, or Ellie, we sit around and we break down video that we have sourced, and then we break down videos that the participants have sourced from their training sessions that they may want further inspection, discussion, evaluation, and intervention on. And yeah, we do a lot of real case studies with Dan to ensure that everyone upscales their coaching eye and can apply that to their coaching practice. Last reminder from us, there will be a second part to this free series. It will be on July 25th. So stay tuned for a new Zoom link for that session. Dan will be back, and either myself or Ellie will be hosting. And in that session, we'll get a little deeper into one of the questions that was asked here already, namely, if we see some movement aberrations, we'll give you some ideas on how to interpret what we are seeing, and then some suggested thought processes around how we could potentially intervene in those with those movement aberrations. So yeah, kind of today we talked about kind of how we look at things, and then next session, July 25th, we'll talk about movement aberrations and how to potentially intervene a little bit better. So Dan, thank you for hanging out with us for an hour and sharing your knowledge and wisdom. Really appreciate you breaking down some video. And yeah, coaches, thanks so much for taking a time out of your day. Big respect to you to come on and try to improve yourselves as practitioners. We realize everyone's busy and not everyone just has an hour to take away from your work or your family or whatever else you have going on. And yeah, hope to see you again live July 25th. And yeah, please check out the Coach's Eye program on the Altus website if you're interested in doing a deeper dive and upscaling your Coach's Eye with us in a more structured format. So yeah, thank you so much, everyone. Take care and best wishes to your coaching, and see you July 25th.